There was a time when time did not feel urgent, not because life was easier, but because time did not demand obedience. People lived with time, not against it. And that difference shaped how humans worked, rested, and understood themselves. Before the 20th century, time was not universal. Noon was local. Schedules were flexible. Days followed light, weather, and physical energy. Work began when the body was ready. It paused when attention faded. It ended when daylight disappeared. This world wasn't inefficient. It was responsive. People adjusted to conditions. Communities adjusted to each other. Productivity was measured by completion, not duration. A task took as long as it needed. But scale changed everything. Cities grew, trade expanded, distance collapsed. Suddenly, coordination mattered more than flexibility. Human rhythm could not keep up with interconnected markets. The human body is cyclical. It fluctuates. It recovers. Markets do not. Markets demand precision, consistency, reliability. And this mismatch created friction everywhere. Early factories were unstable. Output varied. Quality shifted. Managers reacted instead of planned. Workers were blamed. But the problem wasn't motivation. It was structure. What if the problem wasn't people? What if the problem was allowing people to choose their pace? This question did not come from cruelty. It came from pressure. Slowly, time stopped being something people experienced. It became something that could be measured, compared, optimized. The clock moved from churches to factory walls, and with it, authority shifted. The world was ready for someone who would stop negotiating with human rhythm, someone willing to redesign work around precision, someone who believed that order was more important than comfort. The idea did not belong to Henry Ford, but Henry Ford was the first to build a system that made time non-negotiable. And once time became law, life followed. Henry Ford did not dream of changing society. He wanted control, not over people, but over outcomes. Ford was uncomfortable with uncertainty. Variation felt like failure. Waiting felt like weakness. Ford grew up in a world where effort did not guarantee results. Farms depended on weather. Workshops depended on skill. Factories depended on moods. To Ford, this wasn't freedom. It was inefficiency disguised as tradition. Ford did not hate workers. He distrusted variability. People arrived late, worked differently, took breaks at different moments. From Ford's perspective, the system was held hostage by human rhythm. Ford believed that work should not depend on how a person feels. It should depend on how a system is designed. Emotion, fatigue, hesitation, these were not moral flaws. They were engineering problems. Once work is broken into steps, humans become irreplaceable. Skill becomes optional. Judgment becomes unnecessary. What matters is timing, being present, being synchronized. Ford's ideas spread because they delivered stability. Wages increased. Hours became predictable. Accidents decreased. For many workers, obedience felt safer than uncertainty. Ford understood something crucial. Direct control creates resistance. Indirect control creates compliance. If time dictates pace, authority disappears. The clock becomes the manager. By the early 1910s, Ford had the mindset. He had simplified tasks, reduced decision-making, removed human discretion. One question remained: how do you enforce time without constant supervision? The answer would not be a rule. It would be a machine. And once that machine started moving, time would never stand still again. In 1913, Ford did not introduce a faster machine. He introduced a new relationship between humans and time. For the first time in history, work no longer waited for the worker. It arrived on schedule. Before the moving assembly line, the worker controlled motion. He walked, he adjusted, he paused. The task ended when the worker decided it was finished. After the assembly line, motion controlled the worker. The task ended when time said so. The innovation wasn't speed, it was continuity. The line never stopped to ask questions. It never slowed down to negotiate. It moved whether the worker was ready or not. Time became external. Some workers adapted. They learned to synchronize their bodies, not by becoming faster, but by becoming narrower. Movements simplified. Thinking reduced. Awareness shrank to the space between two arriving parts. Others couldn't adapt, not because they were lazy, but because biological rhythm resisted mechanical precision. The system didn't argue, it replaced them. Repetition changed perception. Minutes lost texture. Hours blurred. The day became a sequence of identical motions. When thinking slowed the hands, thinking was discouraged. When awareness caused hesitation, awareness disappeared. Survival meant rhythm. From the outside, the results were undeniable. Production multiplied, costs dropped, errors decreased. The Model T became affordable. Ford succeeded. The system worked. What made the system powerful also made it unforgiving. There was no space for bad days, no space for recovery, no space for personal rhythm. Time did not adapt. Humans did. The assembly line didn't force people to work faster. It removed the possibility of working differently. The moving line was designed for manufacturing, but its logic was universal. If time could control motion here, it could control motion anywhere. Work had changed, and life was next. Ford proved something to the modern world. If you control time, you don't need to control people. And once society learned that lesson, it never forgot it. Ford's greatest impact was not mechanical. It was cultural. The factory did not stay at work. Work followed people home, and with it, the logic of the clock. Once work became predictable, everything around it adjusted. Transportation aligned with shifts, schools aligned with workdays, cities synchronized their movement. Life reorganized itself around production, not by force, by convenience. The 8-hour workday is often remembered as progress, and it was. It created limits, it protected rest, but it also did something else. It divided life into clean blocks: work, rest, leisure. Time became segmented. Segmented time is easy to manage, easy to measure, easy to optimize. Life stopped being fluid. It became modular, replaceable. Millions of people began waking up together, moving together, eating together, resting together. Entire societies started operating in synchronized waves. Coordination increased, individual rhythm disappeared. As schedules strengthened, internal signals weakened. Hunger waited for lunch breaks. Fatigue waited for evenings. Focus waited for calendars. People stopped asking what they felt. They asked what time it was. No supervisor was required. No authority needed to shout. The clock enforced discipline. Being late felt irresponsible. Being early felt anxious. Being on time felt moral. Time became a judge that never spoke. Consumption followed schedules. Entertainment followed calendars. Even rest became strategic. Sleep was no longer recovery, it was preparation. Every moment existed for the next one. Because it worked, it reduced uncertainty, it created order, it allowed large systems to function smoothly. The cost was subtle, and therefore easy to ignore. Today, trust in systems is cracking. People question routines, reject schedules, seek flexibility. But this is not new. Before systems, there was chaos. Systems brought order, and order demanded obedience. Ford did not invent time. He standardized it. And once time becomes a system, escaping it feels irresponsible, even when the system no longer fits the human mind. We don't ask who controls us. We ask what time it is. And then, without noticing, we comply. Subscribe and learn the untold truths about the people and events that shaped the 20th century.